Well, hi everybody, it's the Week in the Tackle podcast, the podcast where we get together on a weekly basis and tackle things we thought were interesting from the world of football or soccer, whatever you like. I'm Tom Rennie, alongside me is MLS legend, top broadcaster, it is Mr. Brian Dunny Dunseth. Hey mate, you right?
I'm fantastic, Rennie. You know what's wild? In just 1 week's time,
Yes.
we go from you trying to wind me up about beating Chelsea, to me trying to wind you up about Graham Potter, to then you rocking what looks to be an amazing Adidas trackie over there with your Oasis, and looks like I don't know how much more could go wrong for me and how much more could go right for you over the course of 7 days.
Yes, my favourite thing of the weekend, after the Graham Potter face swaps finished and this utter fraud got the sack, was reading in the newspaper on Sunday morning. And I sent it to Dunny immediately when I woke up, so it would have been like 3 a.m. his time, so I hope it woke you up. I hope you had your phone on loud. It said, Graham Potter, who was sacked by West Ham United yesterday, is a new name gaining traction at Manchester United as a potential replacement for Ruben Amorim. Now, I'm not a lucky person. Not that many amazing things have happened to me in my life, but if there is a god, a football god, someone who can make this happen, please do this for me. Please make this happen. This would make this podcast already a top 60 podcast in America, a top 30 podcast in Russia. I don't know why. And several other countries where we're doing really well. This will put us number one, top of the charts.
Here's the reveal, Rennie. Here's the reveal. For those that are listening to us,
tell us.
It is a face swap of Graham Potter on Ruben Amorim's body as he's walking off the field in disgust after the loss once again this weekend.
Please.
Yeah, at this point, I'm just dumbfounded. I'm dumbfounded about everything, but surprise, surprise, what's new?
Well, I want to talk about that first, mainly because by the time people hear this, West Ham would have played again under a proper football manager, but he's only been in charge for 2 days, so who knows how it's gone. Before we do that, if you are subscribed to this podcast on Spotify, please subscribe on Apple as well. If you're subscribing on Apple, subscribe over on Spotify. If you're hearing this in someone else's car for the first time, it's called Week in the Tackle. Subscribe on your own personal podcast platform. Subscribe your friends. Tell your friends personally that you enjoyed the show as well. And if you're in the car with several friends, pop it on, and someone will be like, that's good, isn't it? That's good. It's a good podcast, that. And you can say it's Week in the Tackle with Tom Rennie and Brian Dunseth. You can also watch the programme on YouTube in full. And I noticed we got 100 new subscribers last week. I don't know from where. I don't know why, but we thank you for it. And so please subscribe. That means your algorithm on YouTube is going to be better as well. You're going to get similar things to this. For me, it'll be, obviously, the films of Jason Statham. And for him, it'll be the music of Liberace. So that's what you'll get in your YouTube algorithm. What more could you want? Let's start with the Graham Potter story. Because it's sort of coming to the end of its interest now. So it's the last time we can talk about it. And like I've sort of known he's going for a little while, that they made the decision sort of after Tottenham, sort of after Palace, that he was going to go and they were going to try and get Nuno. And in the end, they managed to work it out. At some point Friday, they worked it out, and Saturday morning he gets the job. They don't play till Monday. And so before we get to the Nuno of it, let's talk a bit about Graham Potter. Like, for the last time, hopefully, he's not going to be Man United manager, so we're not going to have to do this again. No chance. It's funny, but no. But we talk a lot, Dunny, you and I, in the broad scheme of things, about managers getting time to bring their ideas. And we said at the very start, do I think it's a Graham Potter set of players? I never sort of thought it did.
He said no.
But I also am a firm believer in coaching and, managers making things better and assessing the players they've got. I mean, the reason I think this Nuno appointment is sensational for West Ham is that no one rated Chris Wood when he went there. No one had much time for Alanga or Hudson-Odoi. No one thought Elliot Anderson was the second coming of Gaza when he went there. No one rated Ola Aina, who was a bit of a journeyman before that point. Murillo, I saw him first few games for Forest. He was diabolical. Probably one of the best defenders in the league last year, despite his giant shorts and weird square frame. So he improves players. Your pal Connor Cody. Listen to Connor Cody talk about Nuno. You cannot get a better review of a manager from a player than Connor Cody or Nuno, who turned him into an England international from a sort of middling former Liverpool championship player, with all due respect. Like, that partnership with Nuno made him fantastic. So I think coaches can improve players. But Dunny, after 9 months, his win ratio, his points per game, was 1. He averaged 1 point per game. Only Avram Grant, who spent most of his time asleep or getting massaged as West Ham manager, has a lower points per game ratio in West Ham history. And after he took over on January 14th, he is statistically the worst manager in the Premier League for getting points of any manager.
Wait, are you talking about Ruben Amorim or are you talking about Graham Potter?
Potter is the one above. So now that stat is true of Amorim. Now that's true. Yes. But it was Potter. Now it's Amorim. I mean,
both are now true.
Give us your view on this. I'll do a bit more on it, but I'd love your view on this because you've had to suffer it when you don't really care. I've made you suffer this. And this has been, it's a joke, right? He did a real bad job.
You did not make me suffer at all. Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed all of it in the same manner in which you're going to stitch me up in about 10 minutes. Listen, it's so weird for me to talk about the Graham Potter situation because I really did enjoy the way that he continued to build upon whatever was Brighton at the time. And there was something romantic about Brighton and the way that they were built and the way that they were playing and stylistically passing the eyeball test. And it felt like when we talk about theoretically the top 4, top 6 conversation, that Brighton at that time underneath Graham Potter and De Zerbi to an extent was this manipulation of a team that you didn't think the names and the names on the back of the jerseys and the faces that filled those kits were going to be capable of pulling off upsets. But there was such consistency to their performances. And they had a little duncethery. They had the dark arts in them where there was a manipulation in the game of like mano a mano, me versus you, like I'm going to, you're the big dog and I'm going to take you out. It was like a World Cup type of feel every single game for Brighton. And then when the team is systematically picked apart, including Graham Potter and moved over to Chelsea, we were all kind of waiting because there was, we all are guilty of this, right? We see this bright young manager coming through and someone who's open and transparent and honest, and we like it at first. And then all of a sudden things start to go sideways and we start to then kind of adjust our thinking and say, he's kind of a bluffer and what's happening behind the scenes. And we're talking about support staff and we're talking about medical staff and we're talking about training modules and we're talking about game tactics, talk about substitution patterns. Even right now, like Enzo's getting absolutely filleted after winning a FIFA Club World Cup on the backside of destroying PSG, right? And we're looking at and we're saying, okay, why the red cards? And we're talking about the substitution pattern at Old Trafford and all. So we do this all the time. We did it with Big Ange Postecoglou at the start of Spurs, where we loved him, and then everyone hated him. And now look at what's happening at Nottingham Forest. So there's definitely a pathway for all of this. But I just very distinctly and clearly remember you and I talking offline in between shows, in between podcast recordings, and you're like, I don't like it. I don't see this group of players being his type of team. And you think about the Declan Rice money, and you think about the money being spent, and you think about Lopetegui, and you think about, what was his name?
Steidten, Tim Steidten.
Steidten. I was going to say Sven Mislintat, but that's Golden Balls.
Yeah.
Tim Steidten.
Same hair.
And then he close. It's like a weird, like Lego helmet bonnet, right?
It's weird. Yeah, it's a weird bonnet.
Gorgeous. Some of us have more than others, and some of us are just holding on for dear life at this point.
They should shave it off. I'd rather be balding than that.
But take it off, put it on the light stand, pick it up, put it on. But I think it's just this weird conundrum when we talk about ownership. We talk about new age ownership and investment. We talk about old style in ownership, management, hands in the cookie jar, manipulating everything behind the scenes. And then ultimately we talk about this idea of allowing someone to have, I don't want to say full control, but a lot of control and bringing in his guys. And then thinking about like the manipulation of a system and a tactics and a formation and how do you get the best of all of this. And again, maybe the most important thing is inside of that locker room, you feel it. Like you can feel it when a guy's kind of a bluffer. And I'm not suggesting Potter's just a bluffer because that I don't think that's
I'm suggesting
fair.
it. I'm suggesting it. I'm suggesting he's one of the biggest frauds in football. But yes,
you suffered through it. But I think there is that moment where we also have to take into account that the players are going to look at this situation and inevitably they're going to start chirping. And there's going to be WhatsApps and there's going to be lunches and there's going to be dinners and there's going to be hangouts and there's going to be get-togethers. There's going to be in the training room. There's going to be five-a-side kick-arounds and all of these, and during the jog, there's whispers, and all of these things start to become bigger and bigger when you're not playing well. And the moment when you see like, he's got the backing of the manager, that for me is like the death knell for everything. So unlike Manchester United, where they have to wait till November 1st to divest of the 12 million owed if they sack Amorim down to 4 million.
Which they will, let me tell you. Absolutely.
If it wasn't their guy, they'd already sack him. But again, a conversation for the next 10 minutes.
Yes.
I'm very impressed with the decision and the ability to convince Nuno. Because I think he is an exceptional manager. I'm shocked the way that it went down at Nottingham Forest after the equity that he had built. But talk about a guy who rebuilt his reputation, because I think people also forget after Wolves, he goes and becomes manager of the month in his first 2 months at Tottenham Hotspur, sacked by Daniel Levy. By the way, great story about how Tottenham sacked Daniel Levy in The Athletic.
Oh, really? I've not read it.
Oh,
good. Okay, all right.
Yeah, worth it. And then rebuilt, the trajectory of his career. I think maybe the thing that we have to be most concerned about Nuno is that he stands on pride in his values. And maybe that's something that he's got to learn how to be a little bit more in control of based on what we saw with Marinakis. But that doesn't matter anymore because he moves on. He's the manager, taking on Everton. I think we're all kind of immediately looking for the Nuno-esque type of things that come along with the DNA of how he wants to play. And he's going to be ruthless. And we're going to find out really, really quick who he believes in. And I would assume he's been offered a certain amount of money or a certain amount of leeway in the January transfer window to push out some of those French players that he doesn't see as part of the way that he wants to play. And then I guarantee you he's got a laundry list with the relationships that he already has of players that he's going to feel like, hey, by the way, I'm in London, West Ham, bowl of disappointment. Come on over. Let's do something special.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by the fact they wanted to get Somerville to Forest in the summer to replace Elanga, and he's at West Ham, so I'm encouraged by that. Obviously, Jarrod Bowen, I think, is exceptional, but wasted 18 months of his career playing for Lopetegui and Potter. Like, I read a great piece this morning about, like, why'd they go for Nuno? Number one, sorry, Tim, fucking lucky did West Ham get that Nuno was available at this moment, because without him, the list of people, with respect, is nowhere near the caliber of Nuno. And the other bit was a bit like, well, this team couldn't, whatever Potter was trying to do, and this segues a bit into Amorim, which I want to do next. Like, originally he went to the Potter formation, the 3-4-3 thing. It didn't work, and he had a 5-month free hit to try and make it work and couldn't. Then he had a transfer window where he got some deals he wanted over the line, some he probably couldn't get over the line, whatever, but he had a decent window relative to the spend of those around West Ham. Might not be an amazing Liverpool spend, but they spent 100+ million in the summer on players that the manager wanted. And then after 2 games, he changed the system entirely. Like, I have been shocked by how underprepared West Ham seem for the season. I've been shocked by it. I didn't expect like something amazing. I still think they should be battling for 10th and not battling for 17th. But I think the battle is now 17th because of Sunderland's start and Nuno coming in new. But, I mean, imagine going into that battle with Graham Potter, like the chocolate teapot manager, like going into a gunfight with a knife. Like, that's basically what Graham Potter was. He had a long time to make something work. He couldn't make it work. And West Ham is a tough job in that, like, you've got to manage up, and there's a board, and there's Sullivan, and it's crazy. But he's worked with Daniel Levy, Marianakis in Saudi Arabia, with Jeff Shee and Mendes at Wolves. Like, this man knows how to deal with nonsense above. He knows how to improve players. In his first interview, I'm going to move on. I know I don't want to do too much on this from here, but they said, what's it like? And Graham Potter's first interview was like, well, we've got to trust the process and we've got to, like, build. And Nuno went, I want to give them hell. And that's what I want to hear from people. When they come here, I want to give them hell. Graham Potter won 2 home games in 8 months. Sorry, 2. You deserve to get sacked if that happens. 6 in total. 6 wins in 24 and 2 home wins. I think it was Leicester and Ipswich, the 2 teams he beat.
Wow.
I know. You're going to really suffer at Man United. And the other bit is that, like, again, this is a Potter thing, and it goes to where I want to take us here, is that I look at the West Ham squad and I think Nuno likes to play with overlapping fullbacks, and there's now Walker Peters or Wan-Bissaka, and there's Diouf. So they like to do that. He wants to play with two wide men with pace at the top. We've got Somerville and Bowen. That's two of the best in the league as far as I'm concerned at doing that sort of thing. He needs a big man who's slightly over the hill to hold the ball up. Hi, Nicholas Fulkrug. Hi, Callum Wilson. Like, he already has two Chris Woods ready to go. And there might be some other... He's got Paquetá or Fernandes in midfield to do the Gibbs-White thing. A lot of the ingredients are already there. I don't think it's going to be as good as Forest, but Graham Potter could have gone to this way of playing 4 months ago and he'd still have a job. And he decided not to. He decided to do whatever he was doing. And I think he's as worthy of the sack as anyone that I've ever seen in football, like truly astonishingly bad, which segues us nicely into the Amorim question. And I'm going to broaden it out, right? Because in the end, we've had the conversation on Amorim a lot. We've just got to see how it goes now. But more broadly, I think, on Amorim, obviously you can give us your view on the weekend if you want. But like the Premier League this season, I keep saying it's more pace and power than I've seen it for years and years and years. Like, I've done this league for 13 years. This is the most pace and power I've seen it in the entire time. And like Amorim set the team up away at Brentford like this was the David Silva, Sergio Aguero, Raheem Sterling, Man City era. What this is the Coyote long throw era. And I feel like some teams have woken up to that fact. Arsenal have woken up to that fact. Newcastle have woken up to that fact. Everton have woken up to it. West Ham have woken up to it this week. Like, you got to play the era you're in. And Amorim seems to be thinking this is 5 years ago. Like, he looks massively out of time, massively out of step. And a high line against Brentford, nearly a year into being Man United manager, with Maguire as your last defender, when they've got Jordan Henderson and they've got Thiago, and they've already done this season. Dunny, I can't believe they're allowing it to continue. There's all sorts of problems, but he's a big problem.
Yeah, and I guess my first reverse Uno question back to you is, who do you line up? Is it only Gareth Southgate? Again, right? I mean, like, somebody asked me the other day.
What about paying for somebody? Marco Silva did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much egg on their face already with the decision making and how this is all transpired and the way that they verbalize things. I mean, weren't they supposed to run out of money right about now, anyways? Until the new line of credit and the new stadium and everything else that's been spent. I don't understand. I don't see anything. I woke up, kickoff was at 5:30 Mountain Time out here in Salt Lake, and I woke up about 5:15. I scrolled, I found the starting 11. I put my phone down, went back to sleep. I still haven't even watched the highlights.
I'm not seen it.
No, I'm not interested in it. I'm not. Why would I waste my time? I'm not joking. As soon as I saw that lineup, I knew what was going to happen. And then of course, you go to I go over to FotMob and check out, and I'm always interested with, like, substitution patterns and everything. And I ended up seeing the highlights, watching the crew over at NBC Sports and the Premier League mornings, and what a weekend of results that's kind of smacked everybody in the face. And I'm just dumbfounded by so many different things. I mean, how many more games? I'm trying to figure out the right way to understand even the simplicity of the substitution pattern that includes substituting a center back virtually each and every game, right around the 60th to 65th minute. And I'm thinking, well, a lot of this could possibly have to do with the impact subs that are coming off the bench. So then you're changing the player profile of a center back that's available. Harry Maguire, deal with direct and keep the game in front of you, versus Lenny Yoro, a little bit of pace and intelligence and a different pro. But then it's virtually the same issues. And again, it comes down to us listening to a manager that talks about the inability of his group to put the game away early in matches, take advantage of situations and how calls go against them, and that they need to be better, and we need to look at it, and we need to work, and we need to do all this stuff. It's 11 months. It's 11 months. And I love when managers believe, right? I love when managers, Mikel Arteta believes, Arne Slot believes. But when things aren't going your way, I just always kind of wonder how malleable they can be with their group of players, how they can adjust their system. And again, what's even worse for me is every single week, it's not the system. It's not the system. It's not the system. Well, we play. Oh, no. Well, sometimes it's three in the back. Sometimes it's four in the back. Sometimes it's five in the back. It's still the same system. And the system is not winning you games. And for as much as Ole's at the wheel and everyone makes fun of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, 17 losses. That was like in 2.5 years' time. He's already got 17 losses. He's already matched the same amount of losses as the head coach of Manchester United, the manager of Manchester United, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had. And that went sideways with the introduction of Cristiano Ronaldo to the group. So I'm at a loss for words, man. And this is why I said to you last week, we came on here and you said, big 3 points against Chelsea. And I said to you, I learned nothing. 5 minutes in, that game doesn't matter because great for the 3 points, grit and fight, and you won the game and all of these things. But you didn't learn anything against an opponent that then you're looking for to say, does this system really work? It doesn't work against Brentford. How in the flying squirrel do you think it's going to work at home against Chelsea? So you take what the game gives you, 5-minute red card, complexity of the game changes. Enzo's looking at and taking a ton of heat for the substitution patterns. Then on top of it, to lose Cole Palmer 10 minutes later, then to subsequently find out that he had a morning routine that see if he was ready to play, and now he's out for another 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That makes it even worse for the Chelsea game. So again, I'm looking at these upcoming games. Sunderland,
good luck.
at Liverpool, Brighton
dear.
at home,
Oh,
away
dear.
at Forest, and away at Spurs.
Oof.
Well, I guess that gets you to November 1st.
Well, we only got
Right?
that's only 5 more podcasts. We've got to do it, and then we can do something else. That's nice. Then we can start the Gareth Southgate,
But
Graham
who?
Potter era.
Oh, God.
Well, I mean,
Well-
in the end, they will identify somebody, and most managers in the world will come, and they will pay. So the question of who is unfair for you, and it's unfair for me, because I honestly don't know. But there are managers available that are unemployed that I would not hire, but I also think I could put this pen in charge, and they'd be able to get a point against Sunderland next week. With Amorim, I
But
don't
see,
think.
that's
I
the
don't know.
craziest part. That right there is the craziest part. Because I can remember as a player just having these conversations in the locker room where you're not trying to be antagonistic towards the manager and the coaching staff and the game plan or any of that stuff, but you have faith in yourself to go out and win the game. It's personal pride. And you know, we can go into, and we've talked about this relentlessly with Gary Neville and Keno and everybody and Scholesy and everyone behind the scenes, and now Wayne Rooney's jumping in, and Rio Ferdinand's had his say. But like Wayne Rooney's recent comments this morning, I think are probably more fitting to where the responsibility lies, and the responsibility lies on ownership and leadership and all of those things. There's a conversation to be had, obviously, about tactics and shape and identity and leadership of the manager and his coaching staff. But from a player's perspective, like they got to get tired of eating so much. Sorry, Tim, every single week, right? And so how does this group of players go through these last 11 months? And I know some are newer than others. And from a personal pride standpoint, not look at each other and be like, hey, in this moment, like, who are we? Like, what do we represent? Like the ghost of the past is so overwhelming to the present. And maybe that's what it comes down to, that these players, this club, it is what it is. It's not what it was.
Yeah. Look, we'll do more on that. We're 5 games away from the sacking, and they'll save a few quid sacking him later. That's the important thing. The question a lot of people are asking, the question is about the fact that Oliver Glasner can make it work at Crystal Palace. Give us a. I mean, before we get to the win over Liverpool, just broadly, like, is it the same formation that they're playing? Is it the same style, or is it just the same shape but it's a different way of playing?
I think it's spirit and momentum. I think it's us versus you. You know, like I again, it's so weird to try to explain what momentum looks like. It's what now, 18, 19 games without losing. And I really don't like taking last year's statistics and trying to roll it into this year's
Yeah.
statistics and be like, that's the seventh game in a row they've held the shutout. Like, I mean, you went
There was
through
3
4
months
months.
in the middle. They were on the
Yeah,
beach for 3 months.
exactly.
Yeah.
But talking to Chris Richards in the summer, he just I don't know the right way to describe it because we worked together at the FIFA Club World Cup semis and finals. And he was coming off the Gold Cup performance where he's become much more of a leader. And I think those moments have kind of bled into obviously the cause and effect of beating Manchester City and beating Liverpool and maintaining this run. And now this kind of feels like what it was with Nottingham Forest and Nuno, in the last year and a half. So do they maintain it? Probably not. Would it be an unbelievable job for him to figure out a way to somehow qualify for some section of Europe by the end of the season while maintaining Conference League competition? Absolutely, especially with the lack of depth on that roster. But in the meantime, they just don't take from anyone. Sorry, Tim. They keep the game in front of them. They're built with power and pace and intelligence and transition moments with that front three. Even with losing Eze and Olise and potentially losing Gay and all of these things, Mateta's a monster up top. I'm actually shocked that he wasn't one of the names that was really up for a move to quote unquote top,
Yeah.
maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 clubs. I was even thinking with him with Newcastle, like wouldn't that kind of fit back in the summer conversation? But yeah, again, I think they're doing the margins for error. They've made them even slimmer. And then in the attacking phase of play, they just believe that they're going to figure out ways to score goals. So, and Glasner, wherever he ends up going, is going to be a step up based on the job that he's done at Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he sees the season out at least. If Amorim goes, I feel like he'd be the first phone call they're probably going to make, and with the sort of budget and whatnot, I'd imagine he would make that move. But let's hope he can stay the season through. I mean, let's just theoretically say that he does stay for the rest of the season. That Gay doesn't go in January. Maybe there's a little bit of re-up in January as well if they're in a good position. I mean, we're 10 years on from Leicester, the 15 season, 15-16 when Leicester won the Premier League. And look, I'm not saying they're going to. I think it's extremely unlikely they will. But like, just speculate with me. Let's be romantic. Let's pretend that we put the kids to bed early and we had a good night's sleep last night and someone's cracked open a bottle of vino. Let's be romantic for a few minutes. Like, is this possible? I mean, with this goalkeeper, with this defense, with this striker, with this midfield, with Munoz, it is spectacular. Like, if this team were in Man City shirts, wouldn't we say, "Oh yeah, that's a top 4 squad. They can do it."
Yeah.
So why not? Tell us how it happens if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking statistically, and I'm trying to read through the lines right now of where they're at. With obviously Liverpool and Arsenal starting off so well in the season, Tottenham just kind of grinding out results in games that they probably. My concern, and I know it's a subplot to this, but my concern for Tottenham is wins or draws instead of draws or wins right now. Sunderland, it's the shot heard around the world to start the season that is as important as Crystal Palace. Bournemouth, I think they've started off really, really well this season. I mean, who would have thought after 6 matches played that Bournemouth and City would be sitting on the same amount of points, albeit goal differential drastically different. I mean, they've conceded 3 goals in the first 3 matches.
That's incredible.
I mean,
Incredible.
it really, really is. If the problem is going to be Conference League, that's going to be the problem. It's going to be the same problem that you had at West Ham in the run to lifting that Conference League title. And what I would suggest is that they are. It's not going to be like Leicester because Leicester City was just purely focused on week in, week out Premier League. I would love to see Crystal Palace lift a Conference League trophy and end up somewhere mid-table where they're just trying to manage the legs and trying to figure out how to. I mean, even look at Tottenham Hotspur and the situation that they were in Europa League. They're putting all their pennies in one bag. So no, I don't think it could be a theoretical love story. I think there is a love story to be told, but I think most likely Crystal Palace is going to find the balance of European nights, Sunday matches to be a huge test on the strength and roster depth of their squad because they're going to need some help. And I'd be intrigued to see as we get closer to the January window how much money is made available to find some players that can continue to help them build that roster depth, similar to the conversation we've had about, Nottingham Forest these last year and a half, 2 years.
I've got a broad question on what's happening in the Premier League this season I want to put to you. Before that, though, just as we're doing Crystal Palace, Liverpool, first loss of the season.
Yeah.
And in every game, in every week, we sort of come off the back of it and gone a bit like, oh, they weren't great there, but they got the win.
Yeah.
And they kept finding ways to win, and it's slot time and all that sort of stuff. But they haven't played well at any point really this season. Maybe like the first half against Everton, bits against Newcastle. Beyond that, not been fantastic in terms of the way they played. And like the question as well is on Florian Wirtz, who is a great player. But there's so many great players that have come to England and it hasn't quite worked out for them, or they've been from England, they go abroad, whatever. I'm thinking the one is like Juan Sebastian Veron is the one that's sort of a generational thing for me. Went to Chelsea at Man United, and he was like an incredible player, and it just couldn't get up to the pace of the Premier League. Everywhere else he went in the world, he was incredible. In England, couldn't do it. Some leagues, some climates, some cities, some countries, some managers just suit you and some don't. And it's still early on Florian Wirtz to suggest that, but they could have won the league and still had the best squad in the league without signing Florian Wirtz. I wouldn't say that's a particularly necessary signing. And I go to the back line and I look at Konate. And I know I have a bugbear on Konate. Like, I just don't think he's very good.
Yeah.
Like, I think he looks clumsy and his positional sense is poor. And he looks like a bit of an oaf, frankly, for that level. Alongside Van Dijk, he looks even more oafish. But you take away the normal back line, and you've got Konate, by all accounts, wanting to leave in the summer as well. And all they've got now is Joe Gomez to replace him if there's a problem.
Like, and Leone tore his ACL the other night. Yeah, and he was
a year. Horrendous.
Yeah, he was supposed to be the future.
Like, what a shame. Why didn't they spend that money on someone else who could?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there was. Listen, I'm bullish on Florian Wirtz. I really like him, but I think we have to change the expectation of how we look at him. At Bayer Leverkusen, he was the key to everything that they were doing well, and he had the support system underneath him. And they had width, and they had flair, and they had combination play, and they had the ability to stretch the line, and they were one of the two dominant forces underneath Xabi Alonso. But coming here, I remember it was a similar conversation from an MLS perspective when Albert Rusnak signed with Seattle Sounders. When he was at Real Salt Lake, he was absolutely the 10. Everything ran through him. And then all of a sudden, he became a complementary piece. And still as important for Seattle as he was for Real Salt Lake, but he was a plug-and-play player that made them better. And not everything had to run through him. I would use the analogy, it's the same thing for Florian Wirtz at Liverpool. That, there's a couple things. I think we need to go back. We need to think about Jota. We need to think about Luis Diaz. We need to think about Darwin Nunez. And all of those three no longer a part of this club meant that there was going to have to be a transition moment, because you're going to have to figure out whether it's Ekitike or it's Isak, or even figuring out a way to reintegrate Chiesa, that all of a sudden all of these pieces are important. You throw Florian Wirtz in here, and I don't know if this is fair or not, but should we acknowledge that Szoboszlai is as good of a player? You just didn't have to pay $120 million for him. And so you're thinking about McAllister sitting in the pocket. You're thinking about Gravenberch sitting in the pocket. You're thinking about Gakpo on that left-hand side, Ekitike and Alexander Isak up top. So all of a sudden, he's not, quote unquote, the number 10 that is slotted in for each and every match. There's competition for spots and there's quality. So I do think there's an adaptation period that's continuing. And to your point, I think they put together pockets of play that have been extraordinary, outstanding. I like that Arsenal game for me was probably one of the most electrifying performances that we've seen at the start of the season for either team. Different ways to go about it. But listen, I get it. And unfortunately, I had this conversation during the broadcast this weekend with Max Bretos, and we were doing Real Salt Lake against Austin FC. And he brought up Diego Luna, the U.S. international. And he's like, Diego's not playing well. And I was like, I'm going to push back right here, because I think what you're trying to say is that this is about goals and assists. And because he hasn't had goals and assists these last couple matches, we just think he's not playing well. I'd argue that he's the player that makes the pass, that leads the pass to the goal. And so we call it hockey assists here in the United States, but the pass that creates the pass and the opportunity for the assist, I think is where certain players thrive. And I think for Florian Wirtz, instead of just saying, was he on the score sheet? Did he have the game-winning assist? I think it's important for guys like that. The way that I look at it, this is just me. I'm not suggesting this for anybody else. But where's the impactful movement off the ball that creates, the chance for a quick combination that looks for that through ball, that finds the winger, that plays it across, and then the guy finishes off the chance? I think that's where, in that middle of a conversation, that's where we have to judge a guy like Florian Wirtz. But I would also say Szoboszlai, I really like him. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, and for some reason doesn't get the shine he deserves when you kind of talk about that upper echelon type of player.
Two other quick bits I wanted to get to before we're out of time today. Firstly, is a kind of broad question on what's happening in England right now and in the Premier League, and maybe in football in general. We've seen it a bit in the Champions League as well. And I wanted to ask you a sort of generational question. I was thinking about the Man City team from 16-17, or was it 17-18 maybe, where they had Aguero, David Silva, and all these sort of dainty Raheem Sterling, short players, and they kept the ball and they had 90% possession. They'd pass you off the field. Never crossed the ball. Never crossed the ball. And there was a real, like, centre halves are dead. No one needs him anymore. No one's ever going to cross the ball. And it's Guardiola's way or the highway. And, like, John Stones is stepping into midfield, dominating games, and all this sort of stuff. And beyond, like, Vince and company, no one in the team was, like, taller than 5'9" or something like that. And you're going back, like, 8 years now. So all the players that are now 22 were between like 14 and 16, right? They were like 15 years old at this time. And now you've got a bunch of guys that are coming through in the Premier League, in English football, and in world football, who have never really spent any time defending the ball in the air. They've spent all this time becoming midfielders, all this time becoming John Stones, all this time becoming players who can bring the ball out from the back. And suddenly, all the guys that knew how to head the ball away have retired. And now we're like, Vincent Kompany is now retired. He could head the ball away. And now everyone is used to like, I've got to find a way to nick the ball off Messi's feet or whatever. And suddenly everyone seems to have noticed that. And I don't know how true this theory holds. It's just something I'm mulling over at the minute.
Yeah.
But like, you watch the Brentford Coyote throw, or you watch the Arsenal set pieces, or Everton set pieces, or Tarkowski at the back post, or all that sort of stuff. It sort of feels like anyone that wants to play 2017 Man City is dead in the water. Including Man City, by the way, if you watched them against Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. I haven't seen much of the Burnley game, but that's certainly how they set up there with a real low-block defensive mindset. How much do you think that is a generational thing, that seasons change and suddenly we all need new profile players? It suddenly seems like the old ideas are new ideas.
Yeah, and by the way, the academy graduate that left for free at the end of that season, 2016-2017 Man City, Tosin.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was 19 at the time, on loan at West Brom, and then obviously the time he had at Fulham. I just popped that up. My God, what a team! David Silva, Leroy Sané, Kevin De Bruyne, Jesus Navas, Willy Caballero, Kolarov, Sergio Aguero, Nolito. Remember Nolito? Ilkay Gundogan, Raheem Sterling, Fernando. Oh man, Fernando! What an interesting player. Anyways,
Foden was still out probably. In the team.
I don't even think Foden was included yet. No, because this was Iheanacho, this is Angelino, this is Angus Gunn, this is Pablo Maffeo, this was the Yaya Toure, Gabby Jesus had just gotten there, Fernandinho, Gael Clichy. God, what a roster that was. So here in the United States, we did this thing where concussion protocol became really, really big. And we were trying to figure out ways to minimize the possibility for concussions for children. And they banned heading of the ball until they were 12. And I remember saying to somebody at U.S. Soccer that a perfect opportunity for you to do a deal with Nerf and do a collaboration and send out Nerf soccer balls to every registered, U.S. soccer regional state association, and teach the kids using Nerf soccer balls how to head the properly. Because that's what I did with my boys. Like I got a Nerf soccer ball and I taught them to get their arms up and head the ball properly and attack the ball. And here's where, and here's how you push the ball. Because I didn't want them going into 12 years old, 13 years old, jumping and, flailing at balls. I see more head injuries and more collisions because kids don't know how to head the ball right now. because you have basically up to 17, 18-year-old kids that don't know how to head the ball properly, don't know how to get their arms up, don't know how to the technique. So it's funny that you bring this up because I just had this conversation. But listen, I think you're talking about margins. And there are teams that have distinct style of. I would include this conversation, and I know this sounds so dumb, and now you got me on a soapbox, and I got to go in a few minutes. But this conversation is a very similar one to center backs that can't hit a diagonal, that can't switch, like can't take a ball off a left back and spring the right midfielder, or can't even pick out a right back. They have to, like the amount of times I watch Manchester United play through Harry Maguire, who hits the ball 5 yards behind a defender.
I moved this on. He took us back. I moved this on. Don't blame me.
No, but because I've never seen like turn and like smack a ball with laces and like, especially in England on the surface, like skip a ball 60 yards across the field and release play. So this is what we do. We do these things where it's like the center back plays to the 6, who plays to the other center back, who finds the 8, who plays to the 6, and then looks wide to the outside right back. And that's going to be theoretically how we keep possession. And so now you're in these generations of certain elite teams that are so good at moving the ball around and keeping the game in front of them and reverse press and collapse and win the ball back. And hey, look at our statistic. We recover the ball in 3.2 passes. And you celebrate all this. And then you get a team that plays direct and the ball pops up over the top. And they've got a racer coming off, with his ass on fire right up underneath your armpit. And you're like, kick the ball out. Or, corner. Sorry, Tim. Play back to my goalkeeper. And then, loops the ball up 10 yards and it's inside his own box and it's panic defending and all this stuff. Yeah, this is why as much as people, take the piss out of Mikel Arteta and Arsenal and easily one of the most unlikable teams in the modern game based on
diving, the cheating,
well, not
the
even that,
all of it.
Just like the fourth official and having like all 3 assistants moan and all this stuff, like just the optics. I get all that. And I'm not a fan, but I don't have to be a fan because that's not my team. But where I do give him credit, those margins, man, whether it's set pieces and long throws, even Calafiori taking the towel from the goalkeeper and running around the field, and the referee saying, "No, you can't do that."
Excellent.
And then he goes, "Oh,
come on,
hey, oh,"
come on, wow.
And then wipe it, using the ball, trying to draw. Like Arsenal for me is the best team in the modern game to expose all of the margins. How can we win a game? And they have whatever data plan and whatever analysts that they have figured out a way to say that if, for example, I remember a coach said to me one time, I was like, why are you always moaning at the AR and the fourth? He goes, I get one call, that one set piece, that one free kick. If that's the margin of us winning, I'm worth being sorry, Tim, for 30 minutes in a game. And I just think they are by far the best at that. And so it's margins. It really is. It's how do you approach the game? How do you think about the game? How do you feel about the game? Egotistically, that's my team, bro. We play the Arsenal way. Look at we're Man City, bro. Like it's just your theory's right, but it's all down to just stupid margins versus how they egotistically want to play.
And 8 years from now, the margins will be, now if we keep the ball for 70% as opposed to keep throwing it in, we'll win games. It will change again, I imagine.
Or just play direct.
Yeah, lazz it in. Big game. Big geezer. You try to get a big geezer. Go on, full Krug. This is your time.
I just want to see one team not play out of the back. Just play direct.
Yeah.
Play for set pieces.
You're about
maybe
to,
throw
mate.
maybe a flip throw. I'm not asking much. Maybe a flip throw inside the own.
What's a flip throw?
Have you not seen where they start and they do a front flip and they put the ball down? The guy does a flip and then launches it like 60 yards.
I've seen it one time. I've never seen it work. Does it actually work?
I mean, it puts the ball in dangerous spots.
Okay. Well, I'll Google it. Got time for one more? Can I ask you one more quick thing?
Yeah. One more.
I just wanted to ask you about Son, only because I was talking about this earlier today, and like the issue with going to America is that sometimes the players are washed when they arrive. I think Son has come. Son would have started for Tottenham against Wolves the weekend. I spoke to a Tottenham fan at the Oasis gig, and he was like looking at the score on his phone, and he was a little bit like, "We need Son. Like we could like." Because basically we bonded over how much we both don't like Mohamed Kudus, and thereby we got into Son. And he was like, "Oh, you work in America? How's he doing?" And I was like, "He's crushing it, mate."
Crushing.
And I was reading this morning that they've scored LAFC's last 17 goals, him and
Yes.
Denny Bouanga, between them. Another
Yes.
brace the weekend for Son in the victory. He might score. So I had a bet earlier today with Adrian Heath. I think he'll stay for 5 years and score 150 goals. That's my bet. What say you?
All I know is that I'm on the periphery of everything that LAFC does, obviously because of Max Bretos and Max being there since day one and doing the LAFC podcast. Overnight, it felt like there was like 1 million new subscribers to the YouTube channel and to the LAFC podcast. We went from English and Spanish to having to find a translator for Korean because that's how quickly just flooded. The comments were flooded with questions and answers and everything. When he got there, I don't think people realized the quality of the human being because everyone who was a Tottenham Hotspur fan knew what an incredible person he was. But then to come over and to be so gracious with his time, with the interview processes, with the pregame interviews, with the halftime interviews, with the postgame interviews, with the postgame going back to studio, he's up for anything. And he and Denny Bouanga, I remember because I did the very first game with Max. We were in Chicago, and I saw it was Denny Bouanga and him were already and it was like 2 training sessions, and Sonny was in the stadium at BMO Stadium when LAFC beat Club America. No, was it Tigres? Tigres beat Tigres, and you could already see like he was instinctually gravitating towards Denny Bouanga, who, crazy enough, didn't even play that day. So the first like warm up kick around, it's him and Tim Tillman. Kicking the ball with Sonny. And immediately they're already starting to look for little cut balls and pass balls. And I think the biggest benefit was them going on the road to Chicago, New England, and Dallas before the very first home game against San Diego because the bonding was immediate. So it's funny. Max and I have talked about this. For $25 million, LAFC got a steal. A steal. And he does everything right. They are outrageous. And if you go back and watch the quality of his goals, outside of that one in St. Louis, was probably the weakest defending and goalkeeping that we've seen.
Very poor.
Which, by the way, Roman Berkey, his goals, he's pinging the inside of the posts when he's scoring. So, his physique, his mentality, he's healthy. He's had a proper preseason into pushing to this stage where he's absolutely just skyrocketing the responsibility he has for both club and country. He's not only an Asian icon, I think he's a world icon. I think he's got more of a Messi effect than people realize in real time. And I can't see if I'm LAFC, I immediately try to renegotiate the contract with Denny Bouanga because while everyone talks about Son Heung-min for all the right reasons, Denny Bouanga just became the first player in MLS history to have 3 consecutive seasons of 20-plus goal-scoring regular seasons. And right now, level with Lionel Messi at the top of the MLS Golden Boot race. Next year, you could have 2 guys at the top of the Golden Boot race in 2026, and Sonny and Denny Bouanga, based on how this is going. And by the way, credit to Steve Cherundolo at LAFC. He announced like 3.5 months ago that he was leaving. His family's already back in Germany. He is leaving LAFC. He just recorded his 100th win. He's been fantastic, and that could have gone sideways.
Yeah.
And for those players to believe in everything that coach is talking about and saying, credit to him. I think he's in for what I would expect to be a big opportunity in the Bundesliga somewhere in the start of the January 2026 season.
Well, he might be going with an MLS Cup in his back pocket as well, considering how good they've been so
Fun
far
to
this
watch.
season and the last few weeks.
Columbus?
Yeah, I know. Well, they're in the playoffs, so we'll have to see how it goes. Rossi will be back, right, for the playoffs? Should be, maybe.
We might need to recalibrate how we talk about Columbus.
Yeah,
Different team, no Cucho.
You can't sell your best players and continue to be good. Doesn't matter how good the coach is, I guess.
Oof.
But we'll see. We'll see. Dunny, what a pleasure. Great to be with you for another week in the tackle. That's Brian Dunseth over there. I'm Tom Rennie. This has been the last ever time we speak about Graham Potter, which we're delighted about until he's the Man United manager.
No.
Tim Horsey produced the programme. See you next week.